And welcome back, everybody, to Copa Hyperion number 48, our weekly, our bi-weekly Latin American tournament. Welcome, everyone. Welcome to the CranKy Ducklings. I'm, of course, your host, Light VIP. And with me today, I'm joined once again by... by my lovely plushies. They are keeping me company today. But yeah, mate, today is gonna be an amazing day. We are back here with Copa Hyperion. Exclamation mark be in the chat if you guys want to have a look at the bracket yourselves. It is a short but stacked bracket, and we're just gonna dive right into it, because spawning in the bottom right hand corner of Cosmic Sapphire, we have the Mexican Terran player representing Exerte Signet, as far as I know, but also rocking his very old clan tag of Dust Gaming. It is Sinner. And spawning in the top left-hand corner of Cosmic Sapphire, we have the Chilean Zerg player himself, representing Infernales Esports. It is Loki. Oh my god. Not gonna lie, I kind of stumbled my way into this series. I was looking at the first round matches and I was like, what exactly do I want here? There's nothing that really stands out. You know, I like Loki. I want to feature more Loki, so I dove on him of all players. And then a couple of seconds before we went live, it clicked and I was like, hold on, I've casted Santo before. It's an alias, isn't it? It is. It's Sinner. For those who don't know, Sinner is one of the best Terran players in all of Latin America, mate. He's insane. He's cracked. He's crazy. Second only to Special in the land of Mexico. And Sinner is just... he's one of those players who is so damn good at what they do, but they don't sign up too often. They don't compete too often. For those who don't know, Sinner streams a lot on his own personal channel, and Sinner is more of a 2v2 player nowadays. He used to be, again, much more competitive in 1v1. Nowadays, he still plays StarCraft, obviously, but more in the team game setting instead. I mean, to each his own. You know, he's having a lot of fun. He's enjoying himself. He's enjoying his life. That's all great and all good. But that's why it's exciting. It's so very exciting every single time we get to see him compete in something like Sentimiento Latin or DreamHack or even Copa Hyperion. Oh boy. So we'll see how he does here, if he can get past his first opponent, which is of course Loki. Do have a Reaper opener, pretty standard so far. He goes across the map, dances a little bit with the Lings, but Loki keeps every single Ling alive. Queen comes out, and everything is looking pretty standard. There were a couple of things that happened. Sinner did send his first SCV to block the linear third, so he forced a triangular third out of his opponent. Loki was able to get his third base up on time, and back at home, Sinner is opening up. Again, pretty stock standard, going for a 1-1-1. Oh boy. And again, for those who don't know or who aren't too familiar with how Sinner plays, he has been known to mix things up. He can play bio, of course, but he can go straight into mech as well, which is I'm not too fond of, but you know, he's amazing at what he does. Again, we could be seeing an add-on swap here as well, so we'll see what kind of opener we get into. The other reason why I said mech is because if we do end up seeing like a BC opener, you know, mech can kind of pretty seamlessly transition from that, but no, we do not. Instead, Stim is on the way. We do not have an add-on swap. It is just going to be for that Viking. Feels good, man. Feels good. And so the time being, again, the Hellions just trying to poke in. There, they clear up a couple of creep tumors. Not bad, not bad. Being very annoying so far. Barely the creep has been connected between all three bases. Loki on the other side, on the flip side of things, still just droning, making queens, opting to not make a handful of Lings here, which is interesting. So being a little bit greedy, relying a lot more on his queens to defend, and it makes sense. Cosmic Sapphire, it can be really difficult to kind of dance between the natural and the third base, which means it's easier to defend against Hellions with only pure queen. The likelihood of these Hellions just diving in and sneaking past the queens is pretty low, so Loki can afford to be greedy and just keep on droning. Oh, I say that as a handful of links has been made. So it looks like he wants to play it safe. He wants to play it safe, wants to make sure that dive doesn't happen. Meanwhile, ooh, something that we don't see too often. After the first Viking to clear out the Overlords, we saw a medevac coming out from Sinner. This still hasn't really been scouted. Finally, Loki is dipping into the main base, confirming the opener. He sees Stim on the way on the rack, so he knows that it is going to be Bio coming out, not mech or anything crazy like that. But that drop is headed towards the main base. A bit of a multi-prong attack. We have Hellions getting ready to dive into the natural, drop going into the main. And the Lings are a little bit out of position here over on the right-hand side of the map instead. Here we go. The Hellions do dip into the main base. Going to be able to roast up a couple of these drones. Oh my god! They do roast up a little bit. 6 drones go down at the same time. Hellions do go past the wall. They do get into the natural base and get a couple more workers. I say a couple more. 9-11 in total. Not bad, not bad. The drop is still alive at half HP, so Sinner is going to have a harder time sneaking into the main base, but it is still here, so Lings have to stick around. They have to stay here in the main, otherwise we're going to just lose more workers. Ay. So far, well worth it here for Sinner. Behind this, he is going for some Liberators, so he's keeping up that harassment. But bearing in mind, because he lost his force of Hellions that were on the map, he cannot stop the creep threat. Not anymore. So the creep is going unhindered. Loki is connecting all of his bases. He is headed towards that halfway point on the map. Upgrades are now on the way. Only one Evo chamber for the time being, so Loki's going to have to work on that as well to get into his 1-1. I imagine Ling Bane. And we'll see if Loki wants to kind of lean towards Mutas or Hydras or stick to Ling Bane and go like Ling Bane Hive. I haven't seen too much of Loki's EVT, to be honest. Like, we don't see a lot of Terrans in this tournament, to be honest, period. So I'm excited. Meanwhile, Liberator comes in. It does get taken out immediately, but it distracts the Queens, and the Hellions. No, the Lings are not here. The Lings were not here. 5 more drones go down. So does the medevac. So these Hellions are locked in, which means, you know, they have nothing to live for. They just get into the mineral line once again, take down as many workers as possible, trade as efficiently as possible. And after all is said and done, looking at the units lost tab, was 8 Hellions, medevac, a Liberator for 17 drones. I would say well worth it, especially when it comes to workers. Workers, they are much more valuable early on in the early to mid game, and for them to die this early, Loki is struggling to replenish them. He still maintains a drone lead, but barely. He's got like 3 drones, 3 workers on his opponent. That's not really what we want to be seeing right now, especially because Loki is looking to get an army ready for that push. Finally finding a little bit of time to drone on up once again, and Sinner actually isn't going for a push. A little bit interesting here. Stim is done, 1-1 is done. I thought that we were going to see like a 1-1 timing with a tank, with like a tank push, like a bio tank push. Instead, Sinner is just sticking with drops for the time being. So playing this a little bit more conservatively. Like, he's still being aggressive, sure, but he's not looking to risk any kind of big major move out. You know, here we go. The job does land here. There's no creep, and oh, we do see a forced cancel of the 4th base immediately. Loki, unfortunately, the creep wasn't really hadn't been spread far enough. 2-2 is now on the way. I think something important to point out about Sinner's build is that it also makes sense that he wouldn't push out because he only has 2 tanks, and the reason why as banelings do get dealt with. The reason why he doesn't have too many tanks here is because his factory was focusing so much on Hellion production earlier, so his tank production was delayed. Meanwhile, the drop again being annoying, but here we go, a massive link run by head towards that 3rd base location. Tanks are getting dove upon, but actually 0 tanks go down, even the exposed one. So honestly, a pretty solid defense, and Loki threw away a lot of lings trying to go for that run by. Ugh. I worry for him a little bit here. Meanwhile, 1-1 is so late. I brought up the Evo chamber earlier, but it looks like Loki did forget about it. He does at least have Baneling speed, so, you know, his Ling Bane is still quite effective, and he is going straight into a Hydra den, so it is going to be Ling Bane Hydra, but his Ling Bane itself is going to be so much weaker compared to that of Sinner. There's going to be a timing here. There's going to be a window where Sinner has 2-2 and Loki has 0-0. Like, that's going to be a very scary moment. So we'll see if Loki can make up for that. We'll see if Loki can hold on as best he can. And I kind of love this. As soon as the Hydra Den is done, Lurker Den and Infestation Pit. What we lack when it comes to upgrades for our Ling Bane, we're going to make up for in tech otherwise. You know, we have all this gas that's being slowly banked up over time. Getting into Lurkers is definitely a way for Loki to come back into this. Aye. We'll see if he can pull it off again. The Lurker Den. The Lurker Den is halfway done, and I can't wait to see them pop out. Sinner is still being relatively conservative and defensive. He's getting his sensor towers up and running. He's getting his 4th base up as well. Soon to be 5th. He scans, confirms the timing of the 4th. Sorry, 5th. I think I called this the 4th before. The 5th base. And Cinder's going to be feeling pretty good about himself. Loki, I think, lacking a little bit. Could be looking to try and double expand soon. And these drops, sure, they're being annoying. But again, they're not really... Oh my god, actually... I was like, hopefully they don't really pull the attention away of Loki too much, as Cinder is now moving out with his army. Okay, yeah, we have plenty of Ling Bane at home to defend. The first wave of Hydras are coming out. Again, these Hydras need to be morphed into Lurkers immediately if Loki wants to hold on to his bases, because, mate, this is a very strong push. 2-2 is done. We have 8 tanks, Papi. 8 tanks. Yeah, there is no way for Loki to hold on to this hatchery. It's going to go down immediately. At the same time, double drop into the main base. The Ling Bane was pulled apart. It looks like the Queens are going to be okay, but we need a little bit more than this. A handful of Lings are rolling on in as well. Looks like this may just be enough. Sinner isn't pushing in at the same time, so this shouldn't get out of control. Shouldn't. 4 Queens did go down, but there we go. Loki has dealt with the drop, and there wasn't any kind of major push into the 4th base of Loki, only the 5th. Loki has to, again, probably double expand from here, just try and get another base up and running. But the Lurker Den is done. We should be seeing a hive soon, and sorry, we already have a hive, and now the Lurkers are coming out. It's going to be that much more difficult for Cinder to really break these bases now. It's going to be that much more easier for Loki to defend and, more importantly, stabilize. His upgrades still are very, very lacking. His economy is lacking as well. Loki down over 10 workers compared to Cinder, which is nothing you want to see here in a ZVT. But with Lurkers, maybe he can hold on. Another push here on the left-hand side. Aye. Loki just wants a 5th base, Papi. Let him have it. Oh, the Lings come in a little bit prematurely. At the same time, Loki is forcing himself into the 3rd base. The mineral line is going to be going down. The tanks as well. Lunker is being used offensively. So Sinner is going to be... Sorry, Loki is going to be giving up his bases. There we go. Another drop here on the right-hand side as well. Hatcheries are going to be falling left and right. And Loki has to make a choice. Is he going to turn around or keep on going? And it looks like in the end, he will turn around. He does save his 4th base. Loses his 5th there, and the drop going towards the northern 5th as well. Forces another cancel. Again, I still think that Loki's main army is relatively powerful, especially because Lurker Range is done, the Adaptive Hounds is on the way, we have 3 Vipers on the way as well. But the Lurkers are across the map. They gotta get home. They're needed at home, not here. Uh-oh. The Lurker's looking quite exposed. 1, 2, 3 Lurkers, 4 Lurkers that we can't... Loki, we can't afford to lose Lurkers like this. Like, without the Lurkers, like, this biotank push isn't going to be stopped. We're knocked down to 5 Lurkers in total when we had 10 earlier. Aye. Vipers trying to suck on whatever they can, trying to slowly gather that energy. The drops are still being such a nuisance here at the 4th base, and Loki is being pulled apart right now. He just cannot contend. He just cannot keep up with this. Lurkers with range, with adaptive talents, are going to be able to hold on to the natural base, which is great and all. But he's losing workers. 17 more drones just went down here on the right-hand side of the map. Another double drop going into the main base. Queens are going to be able to stop this for the time being. They do target down the medevac just in time. And with the power of Vipers, that does mean that Loki can try and dive on this with a couple of Blinding Clouds. He could try and pick away at this with a couple of Abducts as well. He's got options. Speaking of Abducts. Good. Medevac does get picked off. Behind this, Sinner, he's got the gold base. He's double expanding, taking the base on the right-hand side as well. able to recover his third, going into ghosts. Right now, the name of the game here for Loki is just to try. So he just wants a fifth. That's all he wants. He just can't get a Liberator here again. 9 more drones going down. Another drop in the center of the map, clearing up as much creep as possible. And slowly over time, Loki is being suffocated right now. He doesn't have any map control. He barely has any control of his bases as well. Sure, he's holding onto the natural, but the lurkers are no longer in position. The Baneling Nest is going to go down. Oh, and it barely does get focused down by those Marines. Lurkers now get repositioned. Again, looking a little bit vulnerable, not gonna lie. When it comes to the army supply, again, Loki does have something that can contend with that of Sinner. He's gonna be going for a bit of a run by. We do have a planetary, not that much protecting it, so maybe Loki can take this base down, but I don't think it matters. Sinner has the gold. He doesn't care. Oof. Meanwhile, another drop here into the natural base, bypassing all of these lurkers, but in come the Vipers with the blinding clouds, with the abducts. It looks like this small drop is going to be cleaned up. So again, even though Loki doesn't have the largest of armies, like there's a lot of utility to be had here with the Vipers. Without any ghosts, it's really difficult for Sinner to really contend against this, but he doesn't need to because he just has the numbers and he's just going to pull Loki apart. Like, the position here at the natural looks nigh unbreakable. What about the 5th? What about the 4th? What about everywhere else? As we see another base going down, Loki trying to rotate over. He's going to be able to catch a free tank here, and oh, a bit of a move command from Sinner. He's going to lose a lot of bio in the process. Parasitic bombs do connect with these medevacs. So Loki taking some decent trades here. Ooh, even almost catching a ghost. Almost, though, as he does get a lurker. Oh, and Sinner is having a relatively hard time breaking the 4 bases of Loki, but at least he's containing him, and I say having a hard time, but there are just holes all over the place. There are avenues of attack here into the 3rd base or over towards the 5th. But here we go, the lurkers are diving on in. Down go the blinding clouds as well. It looks like Loki's gonna go for one last push. It's not gonna be enough though. There's just nowhere near enough Zerg here. As he just runs into a brick wall. GG gets called and Sinner will take the first game. GG. GG, well played. Loki tried his hardest there, and he was honestly keeping up for quite some time with Sinner, but there were a couple of mistakes here and there, right? When it comes to the Ling Bane upgrades, when it comes to, honestly, just establishing a 5th base, getting his economy up and running. There was the one move that we saw where Loki, it looked like he had a little bit of momentum. He pushed through and broke into the 3rd, and then he left like 6 or 7 lurkers across the map, and they just got picked off one after the other. They had no support. They were left completely naked and exposed. And I think that was the moment where Loki, before that, had a chance and then kind of lost that chance after losing all those lurkers. Like, because he had such limited income, because he was only stuck on 4 bases, like you can't afford to lose your lurkers like that. Just because of how expensive they are. Not just the fact that they're lurkers, but also because you have to morph in Hydras first and then your lurker, and it's just a massive investment. Oof. And we'll see where all of this takes us as we are now loading into game number 2. You can hear the beeps. Game 1 was on Cosmic Sapphire. Game 2 is going to be here on Tropical Sacrifice. Oh boy. Here we go. Right with the storytelling. Aye. Speaking of stories, we have a very storied player here spawning in the bottom left-hand corner of Tropical Sacrifice. We have the Mexican Terran player representing himself, I believe. I believe he is currently teamless. It is Sinner. And spawning in the top right hand corner of Tropical Sacrifice, we have the Chilean Zerg player himself representing Infernales Esports. It is Loki. Oh boy, and it's just like I just get a wave of nostalgia whenever I see the Dust Gaming logo. I believe this is the newer, quote-unquote newer Dust Gaming logo that they ended up getting made. For those who don't remember, Dust Gaming was a relatively competitive team. When was this? Back in like 2015, 2016. It's been quite some time. It's been quite some time. They used to have a Korean roster. I remember they used to have Bunny on their team. They had a bunch of Chilean players as well. I think a part of that was, I don't think they had Halfbreed, but they had Jarpy. Obviously they had Sinner as well. They had a really interesting team that had like a Latin American and also a Korean presence. And yeah, like I was a massive fan of Bunny after he left CJ Enters. So I remember following Dust Gaming for quite some time. In the end, they did end up disbanding their StarCraft roster. They got really big into Warcraft 3 when Warcraft 3 Reforged came out, and then we know what happened with Warcraft 3 Reforged. So a bit of a feels bad, man. Sinner, of course, just rocking his old clan tag from years ago. And so far, working wonders here, like especially on Cosmic Sapphire. It's you know, it's one of those things where it can be a little bit difficult to get a 5th base up and running as a Zerg player just because of how large that map is. And again, he just didn't have that much momentum going his way after he lost so many lurkers earlier on. But we'll see if Loki can find a little bit more success here on Tropical Sacrifice. I want to believe. No, both these players are very competitive in their own right. Once again, a pretty standard opener. We didn't see any players skip their Reapers. The first Reaper is here across the map. Can he get a drone? Almost does. Forces a gas geyser to be made. But pretty good micro here from Loki. Once again, doesn't lose any lings, doesn't lose any drones. Did force a gas geyser, so a little bit of damage was done. But at least Loki got his 3rd base up and running, and things should be looking much better from here. Meanwhile, Sinner, he's anything but standard. We have a 1-1-1 opener, but if you remember last game, Sinner did end up going for a Hellion drop, which is not something you see too often, not anymore. He went for a bit of like Hellion multi-prong harassment with like a drop and a ground army trying to dive in at once. If you remember last game, he got 17 drones for his troubles. We'll see how he can do here in the early game, especially because I'm really curious if he's going to go for the same build or if he is going to go for the add-on swap. Oh my god. No add-on swap required because Marauders are on the way. He thought about getting Concussive Shell. If he does, I imagine an Armory is going to be thrown down. So Hellbat Marauders are going to be on the table here for Sinner. Meanwhile, being a little bit aggressive here with his first wave of Hellions and Reapers, going to be chipping away at this Queen. Shouldn't get the Queen, but ooh, does get a tumor. And this is a little bit scary. This Overlord Scout is so important for Loki. He's going to try and sneak into the main base. There is a Reaper trying to stop him, and a Viking as well. And with the combined efforts of the Viking and the Marine, Overlord gets taken out. Looking at the vision of Loki, he does not see the production. He knows it's a 1-1 opener. You know, he is obviously aware of the factory and the Hellion production, but that is all he is aware of. And because of that, he should be throwing down a safety Baneling Nest, and he's not. And that may be the end of Loki. Armory just got thrown down. It is going to be that Hellbat push with Marauders. Marauders are designed to kill the Queens. The Hellbats are designed to kill the Banelings. Sorry, to kill the Lings. What we need is Banelings, and the nest is thrown down now, but honestly, I feel like this is a little bit late. We're almost at the 5-minute mark here for this Baneling nest. And the push is coming. Oh boy, so Loki, he's going to have to buy time. As soon as the push is revealed, he has to back off. He has to potentially give up his 3rd base, try and save as many workers as possible, and he has to buy time for Banelings. Without Banelings, you can defend with enough Queens. Looking at the units tab, we have 7 Queens. Ideally, we have 8, but here we go. The Hellbats reveal themselves. immediately the first queen is going to go down, and now we have to make a choice for Sinner. Do we take down the third base, or do we go for the third? Do we go for the natural? He does roast up that mineral line. 5 drones go down immediately, and now one after the other with concussive shell. Queens are falling. Banelings are being morphed in, but on the low ground, no! Not like this, Loki, not like this. The Banelings are not going to finish. The Lings get roasted in a desperate attempt. He tries to just send everything he has, but GG gets called, and Sinner takes the second game and the series. GG. Well played. Again, there was no scout, which is fine if there's no scout. He can kind of piece some things together, but the Baneling nest was incredibly late. Because of that, the Banelings being morphed in were late, and unfortunately, the Banelings were morphed in on the low ground, not in the natural, safely behind the wall. It was a bit of a risky maneuver there by Loki, and he was punished for it. Again, like without Banelings and without enough queens and without any kind of foresight, it can be really difficult or nigh impossible to defend that kind of push. If he had seen that coming ahead of time, he would have been able to pull all his queens together, given up on the third base and evacuated it, set up a position on top of his natural, and even with a late Baneling nest, you know, just try to buy time for those Banelings. Oh, but GG, well played. Sinner takes it. Congratulations. GG. And now Sinner is going to be moving on in the brackets to face his next opponent. His opponent who is already waiting for him. It is going to be a Protoss player. It is going to be the Brazilian Protoss in Master.